Thank you once again, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Chris Donovan. I am a sales associate with Lightspeed Financial Services Group. Today, our webinar is on an uncorrelated source of predicted data with social market analytics. So today we are going to have a guest panelist. His name is Joe Gitz. I will be turning things over to him shortly. I just need to read a disclosure, and I'd also like to go over some things on our website briefly, and then he will take away the show. So just bear with me a moment here while I go over this disclosure. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Nothing presented today should be construed as investment advice or a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any security or contract. Since we don't know everyone's investment objectives or risk tolerance, we are not endorsing any specific trading strategies. Security, derivative, and futures trading involves a substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Each investor must consider whether this is a suitable investment, since you may lose all of or more than your initial investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Lightspeed Financial Services Group LLC is not affiliated with these third-party market commentators, educators, or service providers. Data, information, and material content are provided for informational and educational purposes only. This content neither is nor should be construed as an offer, solicitation, or recommendation to buy or sell any securities or contracts. Any investment decisions made by the user through the use of such content is solely based on the user's independent analysis, taking into consideration your financial circumstances, investment objectives, and risk tolerance. Lightspeed Financial Services Group LLC does not endorse, offer, nor recommend any of the services or commentary provided by any of the market commentators, educators, or service providers, and any information used to execute any trading strategies are solely based on the independent analysis of the user. Thank you for listening. So if after today's presentation you have more questions, you can feel free to send us an email at sales@lightspeed.com, and we would be more than happy to address those and get back to you. So additionally, have a little intro for Joe, but before I get to that, I want to cover these few items here on our website. So if you are a prospective client or a client, you can visit our website, lightspeed.com here. This is our homepage. If you want to sign up for a demo, free demo, we offer free 10-day demos. You would go up into the top right-hand corner of our screen here, of our page, click on the Try a Demo button, and it'll take you to the demo request page here. So you just have to fill out the information here requested, and then make sure you select your platform that you want to try and how you heard about us, and then we will send you a username and password to your email that you can use to log into the platform and try it out for 10 days. So definitely, if you've not yet had the opportunity to check out some of our platform offerings, definitely do that. If you are interested in proceeding with opening an account, you would just click on the Open Account button here in the top right-hand corner. This will take you to the first page and the first step in the application process. If you are a U.S. resident, you can complete the entire application process online through our website here. This is the first page of that online application. If you have been working with either myself or another one of our sales representatives, you can select their name. My name is Chris Donovan. Again, select their name when completing your application. They would appreciate it. I would as well. And we would be assigned as your service rep for your account. So anytime you have any questions about your platform or your account, you can call in and ask for us, and we'd be more than happy to assist you. Or you can send us an email as well. If you are a non-US resident, to get started on your account application with us, you would mouse over the Open Account button here and select the third choice underneath that, Download Forms, and that'll take you to the Download Forms page here. Now, if you're looking to open an individual account, you would click on this gray banner here, and it'll open up 4 choices for you here. So if you're an individual, you're not registered with FINRA or anything of the sort, and you want a day trading account or a margin account, you would select the individual non-pro margin choice there, and that would take you to the application document. You have to complete this PDF document and send it to our new accounts team along with a copy of your passport. The address that you are going to send that to is newaccounts@lightspeed.com. So that's new accounts with an S after the T lightspeed.com, and they'll start reviewing that application and let you know if you need to make any updates or changes to it. And lastly, before I hand things over to our guest this afternoon, I just wanted to also point out that we are currently running a promo. The promo code is 10K2021, so you can include that in the promo code section when completing your application. This promotion can get you up to $10,000 cash back via rebate of 50% of your equities and options commissions that you do within the first 3 months of your account being open. So the clock starts ticking, so to speak, once your account gets opened. So, to take full advantage there, you would make sure to fund it to really capitalize on those 90 days. So the stipulation here along the bottom, you do have to fund with and maintain a minimum of $25,000. You got to keep a $25,000 balance in equity in your account at all times during the promotional period. So please do keep that in mind, okay? So with that being said, I'm going to cover this intro that we've got for Joe, and I will pass things off to him, and he will get into it. So,
let me do my own intro, will you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Can absolutely do that. Hang on just a minute here. Let me turn things over to you. I'm going to make you the presenter.
Awesome.
Just bear with me a second. All right.
Yep.
All right, Joe. So you are now the presenter.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're looking at your screen. We can hear you. So yeah, please take it away. And I hope you also will have some time to field any questions at the end if there are any. So I'll let you know if anything comes up. All right.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you for having me. I'd like to thank Lightspeed in general for having me on the webinar today, as well as implementing our data on your platform. And please, if you guys have any questions, I typically find that's the most fun part of the presentation. So please, if you have any questions, put them up there, and we'll talk about them in real time. My name's Joe Gitz. I am one of the founders of Social Market Analytics, and the idea behind our company is about 10 years ago, when social media was in its infancy, enough people asked about creating structured data from social media and microblogs that myself and another guy left, and we started Social Market Analytics to capture the intentions of professional investors as expressed on Twitter. All the rest of the stuff is fluff, so I don't like that introduction. So again, if you have any questions, please jump right in. I am going to switch here. Okay. So I'm going to walk through the agenda. We're going to start by the use of alternative data in finance. And this is going to be a quick part of the presentation. Back 10 years ago, like I was saying, this was a much bigger part because people had questions about whether or not these microblogs and these people out there can actually move markets and actually break news. And we'll talk about that in a second. How we do what we do, our framework, how do we take the full Twitter fire hose and create our metrics from that? What social media in general can offer every investor? Why is it relevant, or why is it a tool that you should include in your investor toolbox? And then how to use the widgets on Lightspeed Trader. I really like the implementation that we have on Lightspeed Trader. There's some unique features to that, and we'll walk through those and how you can use those in your day-to-day process. This is very simply a good slide that just illustrates where tweets are coming from. Now, the use of alternative data is growing exponentially in finance. Right now, 80% of new content being created is what's called an unstructured content, and a big part of that is microblogs. So this graphic here illustrates where these billion tweets a day are actually coming from. And you can see that the red heat map sections overlay very nicely with financial centers. All right, so tweets are coming from financial centers, from people involved in the process of valuing investments. Now, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, when I first started this company, we used to get a lot of questions about unstructured data, social media, why it's relevant. And you can see that time and time again, even on a traditional news source, you'll see the original source was Twitter, or the original source was, Instagram or any of these other social media sources. And you see it that social media is disrupting capital markets, whether it's a miss on an earnings, or whether it's a fire in a particular electric car, or whether it's a drug approval. You'll see that news break first in the capital market space. And I'm going to date myself, but my first job was in the S&P pit in Chicago, and you could feel the energy in the pit before the move actually happened, whether the pit was physically expanding or whether it got louder. And what I like in social media too is the new feeling of the pit. Trading pits are long gone. I feel like social media is that new canary in the coal mine, that something is happening, and that something's gonna happen in the market. So how do we take advantage of that? Well, we are a licensed certified partner of Twitter. We do have access to the full Twitter fire hose, and we filter that fire hose in real time to create quantitative signals that give Lightspeed traders an advantage in the market, because they see the same information that we're sending out to hedge funds, money managers through our API. And you'll see that this kind of data is ideally suited for ad market makers, risk managers, selecting positions. We'll walk through that as we go forward in the presentation. Now, Chris, I am not looking, but are there any questions right off the bat?
So nothing yet. So carry on.
All right, cool. I'll stop a couple times during the presentation, and please, guys, jump right in. So this is a little bit about our framework, and we do have a number of different patents. We actually have 3 different patents on this whole process, and the whole process is the extraction, calculation, and publication of metrics on social media data. So the warehouse is interesting in that it does a couple things. So it listens to the full stream from whatever source we happen to be taking, and we're going to talk about Twitter today. We have what are called topics. A topic is a collection of rules that we use to define a tweet as talking about something we're interested in. So just as an example, if you're talking about Tesla, if we're talking about Tesla, we're going to want to pull out Tesla. We're going to want to pull out Solar City. We're going to want to pull out Model X. We're going to want to put a knot on Nikolai Tesla. So a topic is not just $ ticker or company name. It's a collection of rules that we use to filter the Twitter sphere for tweets that we're interested in. That goes into our archive, and it's used to filter a couple different things. Now, when we normalize that data, which is the middle process, which is right here, we're doing a couple things. One, we're identifying and evaluating the accounts. So we learned pretty early on that it's not just what's being said, but who's saying it. So one of the things that we do is we rate anyone that's ever tweeted about a particular security based on 9 different metrics. Okay, so we don't use number of followers, but we're trying to identify the web that's broadcast from each tweet. So is this a tweet that is retweeted a lot, or quote tweeted a lot, or people replying to it, or people liking it? So we're trying to measure the engagement of each individual tweet, and we identify the accounts that have the largest engagement overall, and those are the accounts that are included in our metrics going forward. One of the things that we also do, and Lightspeed has some great widgets for this, is identify who the most accurate accounts are. So one of the metrics that we include is accuracy on a forward basis. So if at the end of the day a particular account is bullish on a security, what percentage of the time over a weighted period of time is that security higher or lower over history? And we found that that's one of the metrics that is pretty powerful in creating our scores. So the normalization, it identifies the accounts that we're going to listen to on a go-forward basis, and then it also removes spam, people trying to game the system, people trying to manipulate scores. We have a whole number of metrics for that. And then in the end, we calculate metrics that describe the current conversation on a standard normal curve. And we call them S-scores. They're really statistical Z-scores, and those are published in the API, and those are what are shown on the Lightspeed platform. And so what makes this process unique? Or why is this an ideal way to use social media as a tool in your investment toolbox? And that's what this is, guys. This is not a single factor trading model. This is a tool that can be used in your evaluation of securities. We sell most of our data to hedge funds and buy-side firms, and what they tell us is that it's one of the top 10 most impactful factors in their models. A lot of these guys have hundreds of factors in their models, and they rank these factors on a regular basis. And they find that social media-based inputs are in the top 10 of those factors. It's a tool for your toolbox. So why is this data important, or why do we feel like we're the best people to create this data? One, out of sample. So prior to this, I had founded a company called Quantitative Analytics, and we did data integration and normalization. And really the key factor that we had for all of our data was the out of sample. And we carried that into our social media feed. And that's critically important because, it's a moving target. So all of our data is out of sample when someone creates a backtest with our data, and when we're training our natural language processing and our artificial intelligence engine, all the data is as it was at that point in time. Okay, so we never go back and recalculate anything. It's all out of sample, and it's going on 10 years. We talked about this a little bit, the complex topic modeling. So it's not $ ticker, which is a really simplistic way to do it, or company name. It's a rules-based system, and the average security has over 10 different rules that are included in that. So just as an example, there are a lot of cryptocurrencies that have the same ticker symbol as traditional equities. And those are things that we filter out. So you got to be careful when you're getting metrics like these from various sources to make sure that you don't get that pollution or that overlap. And we go through a great deal of effort to make sure that you're getting the cleanest signal in the Lightspeed platform. Independent research. If you went on our website, socialmarketanalytics.com, you can see a lot of different pieces of research, both internal and external. We're particularly proud of the external research. So please, you can visit our site and request that research, and it's a good read and provides some good places to look when you're looking at social media. NLP. So our natural language processing was built by us. We originally started with the Stanford Natural Language Processing Engine, and we learned pretty quickly we need to build our own. So we actually built our own system, and it's evolved over time. And I'm going to be publishing a white paper that describes in great detail how our artificial intelligence engine works, some of the machine learning, natural language processing, and understanding works. So you can look at that on our site. If you're having any kind of sleeping issues, it'll put you right to sleep. Source rating, we rate the individual sources, and then we have our parsing engine. So we can actually go in and parse any different types of text. Chris, got to keep you on your toes. Any questions?
Nope, nothing so far.
Okay. All right, good. Then hopefully it's perfect understanding. So when you're looking at social media, or when you're looking at a lot of different types of data that you can't necessarily compare across securities, a standardization method is really a nice way to do it. And so we calculate Z-scores. And what you see on the Lightspeed Trader platform is a series of metrics that describe the current conversation on social media relative to those historical baselines. So it's a fairly short-term signal, so it's a 24-hour summation of the tweets compared to a 20-day baseline. And what we're saying is, hey, if you have an S-score of 2 or higher, that means the current conversation is more positive than 96% of prior conversations over that 20-day look-back period. If you have an S-score of -2 or lower, and you're going to be right here on this standard normal curve, that means the current conversation is more negative than 96% of prior conversation. And as you can imagine, if the current conversation is a lot more positive on Twitter, those securities tend to outperform. If the current conversation is a lot more negative, those securities statistically tend to underperform. And you can see that on a statistical basis. So how do you use this data? And we publish these metrics both on the actual tweets themselves. We use our own sentiment scoring algorithm. We score each individual tweet, and then we normalize it based on that 24 hours and that 20-day baseline that we were talking about. And what that allows you to do is put securities of different market cap, different size, different followings, and compare them to each other. So you can compare a Tesla with a General Motors, or you compare a Microsoft with an Apple, or some smaller software company, because the way we normalize it to each individual security. One of the common questions that we get is how do you do that normalization? It is on a security by security basis. And so our SV score, which is that volume on a standard normal curve, as well as that S score, are all normalized for that security. So why is this important? Why is it relevant to you guys out there? Well, it's a leading indicator of security performance. You see it on an ad hoc basis when Twitter breaks the news, or you see a conversation on Twitter. Even prior to information being on CNN or MSN or any of the other traditional news, it's a leading indicator. And if you go to our website, you can see all sorts of charts on the forward-looking capabilities of this data. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. It's an indicator of price movement. So security is being discussed more positively. And as you can imagine, if people are talking more positively, maybe they crushed earnings, or maybe the reviews on the new product are very positive, or maybe they settled a lawsuit. Whatever positive mentions are out there, that's going to lead to outperformance generally. And you guys all heard the disclaimer. And securities that behave, that have conversations that are more negative over that same baseline, they go on to underperform. And you can see it statistically going back these 10 years. So it's a leading indicator is how you can best describe it. So that leads to new trade ideas. And how it leads to new trade ideas? Well, what will happen is, and that's one of the reasons why I really like the implementation on Lightspeed, is that one of the widgets is a top 10, bottom 10, and that brings new ideas to the table. So, for example, people come in saying, "I'm going to trade Apple, Google, Facebook, Tesla," but what you'll see is that all of a sudden the conversation changes on a security maybe you've never heard of, and so this data can help you trade better. Our goal is to get you to help you be a better trader, and this is social media is a way to do that. Position monitoring. So if you want to, if you see a positive sentiment, maybe you want to alter your position, maybe you want to do something in the option market. It gives you some new ideas on trades to make, and then trade execution. If you want to go long and you see a negative sentiment, maybe you have time to wait. Or if you want to go short and you see a positive sentiment, maybe you have some time to wait. And we see a lot of our buy-side firms using it for trade execution and new trading ideas. Okay, take a drink here for a second. So we have 5 really cool widgets right now implemented on the platform. They're there, they're up and running. And we have the top 10 sentiment, bottom 10 sentiment, and we'll go in and we'll look and see how these work. Accurate accounts long side, accurate accounts short side. These are fantastic and unique widgets, and we'll talk a little bit about those. And then sentiment by symbol, which is a symbol page like you're used to seeing in other types of data sets. All right, top 10 sentiment. So this is a minute-by-minute snapshot of what's being said in social media. And sentiment changes intraday. You'll see securities that are in the top 10 in the morning are not going to be in there later on in the day, and securities are constantly moving in and out of this universe. So what this does is this takes every minute the most positively talked about securities at that point in time. Okay, so here Diffusion Pharmaceuticals had a 4.22 Z-score. Now, if you click on the information button, obviously you guys know that you're going to get a pop out, and it's going to go through and define that for you and tell you what that particular metrics means. 4.22 is about as positive of a sentiment as you're going to get. That current conversation is incredibly positive at that point in time. And SV score 3.75, that means the number of indicative tweets, that's the tweets that come from those certified accounts, is incredibly high as well. That's 3.75 standard deviations more positive than normal. So if you look back, and I'm going to jump through a couple slides here. If you look back here, that's way over here. That means the current conversation is very positive, and the number of tweets about that particular security is incredibly high relative to that security. That's a very bullish signal. All right, let's go back to that page. And then the S volume is once you've filtered all of those tweets for the spam, you remove the spam, you've removed accounts that aren't really relevant. That's how many tweets you have that are going into that particular calculation. Okay, and you can see here that a lot of these aren't necessarily household names. And this is what I was talking about providing new trading ideas. Obviously nowadays everyone knows what Zoom is, but all of these, Beyond Meat is in there as well. So it brings new securities to the front. Now, these are active links, so if you click on the individual symbol, it'll go to the sentiment by symbol page. Okay, you'll be able to look at the individual securities. And the bottom 10, here you go, that's the opposite. So that means that if you're looking at that standard normal curve, the current conversation is way over here. Maybe they missed earnings, or maybe they had a drug rejection, or maybe there's some kind of investigation. Maybe something happened with one of their products. Whatever it is, the current conversation on that security is significantly more negative than it has been over the last 20 days. Okay. I'm not going to jump back there again. So this is 3.99. That's a very negative conversation with a very high relative volume. All right, so genetic technologies, Oracle. So this is the opposite. And again, this is updated every minute, and it does have that volume. So one of the things that you as a user may want to avoid is if you see a high S score, either positive or negative, with a low SV score, that's not a strong signal, because that means that there might be one or two accounts only talking about that particular security, or it's a low number of tweets for that particular security, so you may want to look at it a little bit more closely. But when you have the combination of a high S score and a high SV score, that is a stronger signal. All right, now this is my favorite widget right here. So this is looking at, I mentioned earlier that we also go in and look at the accounts. We rate the accounts, we identify who the most influential accounts are, as well as who are the most accurate accounts. And we have the 100 most accurate accounts that are published on a daily basis. All right, so these are the guys that are on Twitter, and they're commenting, and we're tracking performance over time, and we say, hey, these guys are significantly more accurate. This particular widget allows you to look at accuracy over a number of periods of time. So you can look at 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, and 1 month holding periods. And we pull the stocks that these particular accounts are talking about, and we look at their current position, or their not position, their current sentiment. So in this case, Salesforce, okay, there were 15 of those accurate accounts talking about that particular security. 73% of them were positive on that, and 13% of them were negative. The difference between that is neutral. Okay, so 15 people mentioning it, 73% of those were positive, 13% of those were negative over the next, and they're talking about it over a 1 day accuracy holding period. And again, this is updated on a daily basis, and this is a live calculation of who the most accurate accounts are. And if you think about it, it's the next iteration of analyst accuracy. So if there are metrics out there that calculate how accurate analysts are, this is the next level of that. MongoDB, 67% of them are positive, no negatives, the rest are all neutral. Microchip Technology, 80% of those accounts are talking positively about it, and there are no negatives. That's 0%. And then on the opposite side, the negatives. And this is a Twitter presentation. I always think this is a little humorous. So of the most accurate accounts, 36% of them were positive and 45% of them were negative, and the rest were neutral. So Twitter, Nike, Arrowhead Research, and Amarin Corporation on this particular day, of the most accurate accounts, here's the ones that we're talking about most negatively about. And again, you could switch your day, week, time. This will change, and the account universe will typically change as well. But this is a unique implementation, and it gives you a heads up of who the most accurate people and what they are saying. And then all of those links that we were looking at earlier, all of these links here, they link to the company page. Okay, so you can go in and see the standard metrics that describe that current conversation on the sentiment by symbol page. And again, to learn more about these metrics, you have the information button. So on Apple, so if you type in Apple, on this particular day, the current conversation on Apple was negative. It wasn't strongly negative, but it was negative with pretty much normal volume. Here's the actual indicative tweet count. Dispersion. This is an important metric. What this tells you is what percentage of the tweets are coming from unique accounts. So in this case, half the tweets, 0.54, are coming from unique accounts. So each account has 2 tweets is pretty much what that shows. And so if you have a high dispersion, that's good. That's good, because what that tells you is that it's a broad level conversation. If you have a low dispersion, that's bad. That means one account is sending out most of the signals. Now the S-score, the speedometer, just gives you an idea of the overall range of sentiment and where that particular security is in that range. Okay, so here's your S-score, and then here's your percentage change. And then you have your historical chart, as well as sentiment. The color code on the volume indicates whether or not the sentiment change was positive or negative in that particular minute. Okay. And this widget is used a lot. We know that. So people like this widget, and specifically the speedometer associated with it. Now, if you have the desktop application implementation, you can see the particular widgets right here. So you can go to any of these, and then there's also a really nice how to use SMA sentiment. So there's a kind of a paper that gives you an idea of how to use it as one of the tools in your investment toolbox, and people find that helpful as well. Again, here's the implementation, the desktop implementation, so you can see S-score, S-volume. Here's your top 10, bottom 10 that we saw a little bit earlier. Here's your heat map. And then here's your accounts positive and your accounts negative implementation. You can see here's different securities on there as well. So you can add these widgets to your desktop, and they can help you out with your overall trading process. And again, all this data is updated every minute in real time. It's the exact same feed that hedge funds are getting, that hedge funds are using in their implementations and in their risk systems and their trading algos. Chris, do you have any questions? Has anybody answered a question?
I don't see anything in the questions section here, but just as a reminder, we are opening the floor up for some questions here. So if you'd like to ask Joe anything about how the tools on the platform work, or any additional insight about them, now is the time to ask while we've got them. We'll just give everyone a minute or two.
Cool. And if you guys want to reach out to me, I'm Joe G, Joeg, at socialmarketanalytics.com. And you can feel free to reach out to me.
So we've got one question here from Tom. He's asking, what other social media platforms do you use except for Twitter?
In this implementation, it is only Twitter. So the signals are all coming from the Twitter sphere. In general, other sources that are predictive stock twits is a good signal. We have done some analysis on Reddit, and there is some predictive power in the Reddit. We have never seen anything particularly predictive in Facebook or Instagram or even YouTube comments. We have found that Twitter is by far the most predictive and most stable across time.
Just give it another minute or two for anyone who has any follow-up questions to get a chance to get those in. So just hang on a minute here. So Raphael, I believe Joe had addressed that, but we can ask again. So Joe, Raphael would like to know what the source of your data is. I believe it's just Twitter, right?
Yeah, the source of this implementation on the Lightspeed platform is Twitter, and the reason it's Twitter is because it has the broadest universe of coverage. So we will actually generate signals out of the 4,500 active equities right now. We'll generate signals every day on about 2,800 of those. And so Twitter has the broadest, most stable signal, and it covers the most securities. There are other signals are out there, but there's a reason we chose to implement the Twitter feed on the Lightspeed platform.
Awesome. Thank you for that. See, Tom's got a follow-up question here. Wants to know if these widgets are available for an extra fee with Lightspeed. I think I got that one. Tom,
Nice.
no. That there's no extra fee associated with having access to these tools on the platform. You are paying the platform fee already, so these tools are available for you to use. Raphael also had a follow-up question. Wants to know if the data from Twitter that you're using is restricted to U.S. tweets or if it's worldwide.
It is worldwide, but it is in English. Most of the tweets do come in English, but that is the restriction is that we are grabbing the English language tweets, but the publication is independent of location. So if they're in English, we're using them in our metrics, possibly depending on the account and the text of the conversation. Not location, just language.
So I've got a question here from Nori. I'll be able to take this one. Wants to know if you can sort by float. Nori, no, you're not able to sort by float on the platform. So we'll leave the floor open for another minute or two. And anybody, any questions that you've got? Now's the time to ask before we wrap things up. So, Nori, follow-up question: How can I add this? You don't have to add it. It's available on the Lightspeed Trader platform with your live account. So you'll have access to that. You'll see it available in the new drop-down menu. You click on that button on the index bar in the top left-hand corner. Click on that and scroll down to the bottom there, and you'll see the SMA social media analytics tool. Choices for you to select from to add to your layout there. So, Joe, would you be able to go over the SV score again and those statistics?
Absolutely. Let me jump up here. All right. Okay, so SV score, I'm going to go back to my standard normal curve. And that's a good question because it's an important metric. So I'm going to go up. So the reason we created SV scores is if you just look at the raw number of tweets, you're not going to get an accurate representation of the conversation for that particular security. If you just look at the raw number of tweets, you're going to get the FANG stocks 1, 2, 3, 4, top every day in terms of number of tweets. So we put the number of tweets on a normal curve as well. And so an SV score of 4. And think about that standard normal curve. An SV score of 3.7 means that the number of tweets for that security is significantly larger than you would get for that security over the last month. So a 3.7 means that the number of tweets for that particular security are 3 standard deviations more than normal. And that might be, if you're looking for 3 standard deviations for Apple, that's going to be a couple thousand more. If you're going to look at 3 standard deviations for some mid-cap, biotech, that's going to be a significantly lower number. So the reason we created that metric is so you can compare the relative number of tweets for that security relative to just that security. Okay, so here you have 156 here for Beyond Meat, which is a 3.68 standard deviation, and you have a 3.7 with only 23 for Diffusion Pharmaceuticals. So it puts that volume into perspective when comparing to other securities. So is the volume for that security significantly, and again, that's Twitter volume, significantly more than normal? So a strong S score, a really significant S score, either positive or negative, with a high relative volume, that's a stronger signal. The volume is a confirmatory signal to the S score.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Tom, did that answer your question? Was that Tom, I think?
Yes. Or actually, no. That was Raphael. But Tom also
Raphael.
had a follow up. Wants to know, how about unifying the data from the tools with traditional gap scanners? Is that something that could be helpful?
Oh yeah, I think sentiment in a gap scanner would be so. And this is anecdotal. I have seen that if you get a high sentiment with a gap down, you're going to fill that gap a lot quicker. I've just seen it. I don't have any statistical evidence on that, but I think using that data with a gap scanner would be very helpful. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
All right. And lastly, Nori, if you don't see those tools available on the list of the new button there on the Lightspeed Trader platform, go ahead and send an email to service@lightspeed.com and let them know. They should be able to help you sort that out. So just another minute or two here. Anybody, Joe? I'm not sure if you're tight on time or not, but
No, I'm good.
okay, all right, great. Yeah, so anybody, any further questions? Please go ahead and send those out before we finish things up here. All right, looks like that just about does it for us today, Joe. Thank you very much for your time and for joining us. Actually, one last question came through
All
here.
right.
Someone wants to know where they can find reference for the algorithm. I'm not sure if that's something you can share or would like to or not, but yeah, they're putting that out there.
You can go to our website, socialmarketanalytics.com, and we talk about the algorithms in a number of our different blogs. And give me about a week or so and check back on the blog site. I'm going to be writing a pretty detailed white paper on our AI and our natural language processing that I'm going to put up there that really pulls back the onion on a lot of what we do. But you can go to our website, and there's a bunch of blogs about that. It shows examples. It shows the benefits of some of the filtering on accounts. There's a lot of educational stuff on our website.
All right. Thanks again, Joe, for joining us, and everybody else in the audience. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and we really enjoyed having you on, Joe. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it. And please, anybody in the audience, if you've got follow-up questions, feel free to email Joe. Joe, what's your email one more time for them?
Sure. Joe G, JOEG, at socialmarketanalytics.com. And I'm happy to take questions. Chris, thanks for having me. We appreciate Lightspeed. And guys, good trading to you. Good luck.
Thanks so much, Joe. Anybody follow-up questions, feel free to send an email to sales@lightspeed.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. See you guys.
Take care.